All right, bam, and we are live with another episode of Mentor Minutes, where I take your leadership questions and try to put some practical advice behind the theory of leadership so that you can improve your leadership and keep making those strides forward. So if you have any questions, drop down into the comment section. If you're catching a replay of this, drop down in the comment section and leave a question. I start off all of these episodes while we're queuing up some people here on the live stream. We start off with questions that we received yesterday or that I received through instant messaging, email, or through my YouTube and podcast channels as well. And that's actually what's going to start us off today. First question I received was anonymously through a direct message on Facebook. And it was an individual who, along with 7 other people in her company, was fired. Summarily dismissed, has never been fired before, is 55 years old, and is embarrassed. And Cindy, I'm going to get to your question here in just 1 second from yesterday. And just trying to pick up the pieces. And so my advice first and foremost is that you are not going to want to shy away from the fact that you are not working right now. Obviously, you're looking to get another job, and this is a setback. So whatever the reasoning was for your termination, hopefully it was something like downsizing or something along those lines. But if you were fired for some sort of ethical violation, some sort of rules violation, it's important that you put a positive spin on it as much as you can, but you don't look like you're covering it up. You need to address this hole, if we will, in your work history when you're going for interviews. So the fact that 7 other people were dismissed with you is something that you can use and say, you know what, there was something that wasn't clear and we all got caught up in it. And so it was me and 7 other individuals. And what I learned was such and such. Sharon and Nora, good to see you here. And so talk about the reasoning for it. Let them know because they have that question in their head. And then talk about what you learned. Now, if you were downsized, no big deal. That happens all the time. If the division wasn't doing well, if the company wasn't doing well, then that's fine. And again, you can reference that it wasn't just you, it was a number of other individuals because you don't want to be perceived as kind of the bad apple or the low performer that's out there. So you will need to address it head on. All right. And so just be aware of that and come up with a few talking points to be able to address in regards to that. The other thing that I want you to do is go ahead, whip out that resume, the last copy that you have, or just start from scratch. You can look at a bunch of resume templates online that'll give you an idea. And really there is no bad way, I want to say, to format a resume. You see all kinds of them. But what I want you to focus on is I want you to go through your work history and I want you to focus on accomplishments. What did you accomplish in each of your roles? Now, there's 2 reasons for this. In your case, one of the first primary reason is to get you out of that stinking thinking that you're going through. Okay, you got fired. That sucks. All right? And it can be a hit to your ego. Dave, good to see you here. But what you want to do is you want to get focused on the positive. All right? Lots of people get fired at some point in their career. I almost want to say most people get fired. I don't know. I'll have to look up the statistics on that later on. Or somebody who's out there right now can tell me the statistics on how many times or the frequency of people getting fired at some point in their career. Abdul Hamid, always good to see people from the other side of the world over in Dubai. But so you want to start talking about the positive things. Get your mind thinking about those positive things. And that also creates an opportunity for you to plug those into your resume. Accomplishments is what's the most important part of your resume. I like to say I don't care what your responsibilities were in a particular job because lots of people have those responsibilities or a bunch of people before you who held that position had those responsibilities. I want to know what you accomplished that shows that you were the best at that position. So whip out that resume and start going through your accomplishments and all the good things that happened, and that will reframe your mindset. But the important thing that I'm mentioning here is actions that you're taking. Okay? You want to get out of the doldrums that you're in, that you're stuck in that rut of negative thinking. JC, good to see you here as well. And Dorothy, always good to see you. So get out of that, get your mind focused on accomplishments and get rolling there. And that will help lead it forward. But definitely, and I know I've kept you anonymous, but definitely reach out to me if you have any further questions, anything that I can help along in this process. It's a good market to try to look for a job right now, at least if you're stateside, and it appeared that you were. but get thinking about those accomplishments. Second thing I wanted to handle, and I saw that Cindy was on here earlier, and I hope she still is, and if anybody has any questions, go ahead, drop them down in the comment section, and I will tackle them as we go. I do kind of have a consistent thread topic to talk through today, and that's going to be micromanagement. So I will be throwing in some thoughts in regards to micromanagement, but I wanted to tackle Cindy's question from yesterday that came in a little bit after our live session ended. And the situation is that the company owner or president's wife has been employed in an entry-level admin position. And this person, Cindy passes along her schedule every day, and this person is micromanaging and is rude and confirming and passing along facts. How I want you to handle this, Cindy, and it's sad that you put in that you and her are the only two females in the company. But I do like that you put in that dynamic because you don't want to be fostering any sort of like catty mentality that'll hurt other women's chances of getting employed there. But what I want you to look to do, John Michael, Luke, always good to see both of you here. What I want you to do is I want you to give the CEO or the owner a heads up and say, hey, just so you know, I'm going to have a talk with your wife about this and this and this, and be specific on the few things. And this is kind of a first pass for you. So hit a couple of the major topics, but the ones that you feel like you're the most backed up in and that are the ones that she can most easily see and make improvements on. So you may not, if there's some weird personal dynamics, that might be a secondary conversation. Tackle a few simple things to start out with, but let the CEO know that you're going to be taking care of it, or that you're going to be addressing it, and that the issue is going to come up. So, hey, just wanted to let you know, I'm going to pull Cameron, his female name as well, your wife in and talk to her just about a few things, because there's been a couple of things that have been just kind of rubbing me wrong as far as how she's handling my schedule and how she's confirming things to me, and I want to make sure that we have a good working relationship. And you're going to handle that conversation constructively, positively, and with specifics. Okay, so having specifics is an absolute key, but start simple. Start with the things that are obvious, that aren't requiring quite as much in the way of feelings or stuff like that. And I think you kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about here. Give the CEO a heads up. That way, when they're driving home at night and she's mentioning it, he's not caught off guard, but address it that way. Start simple and then see where it goes from there. And then we can, of course, carry on this conversation as we move along. Karen, so good to see you here. And again, as we've had a bunch of people jump on, if you've got any questions, drop them down into the comment section. And we'll go ahead and kind of tackle them here in real time. Karen, you're first up to bat for today's questions. And that is how to handle an EXCO member that like to micromanage operations. I'm going to take EXCO as executive committee member. Or executive member who likes to micromanage, and that starts us right off. And it's what I have down to discuss today as far as micromanagement is concerned. One of the most important things when dealing with a boss who micromanages you is to try to gain control over some of that micromanagement. The easiest way to do that is to recommend updates. This, by the way, is the first thing to do in conquering your own micromanagement, because we all have a little bit of that tendency as leaders to want to get into the weeds and micromanage our people. At least 95+% of leaders do. So what you want to do is gain some control. The first thing to do, ask for updates. Or not ask for updates, but recommend updates. So they give you a task and say, okay, that's great. How about I bring this to you in 1 hour? Or how about I bring this to you at 9 a.m. tomorrow? Whatever the appropriate time frame is for that. Let me bring it and let me update you on my progress or where we're at. But you want to schedule it so it is an update. It isn't you handing it in to the particular person. It's not done yet. So at some midway point or some logical point, give them an update and say, hey, just so you know, this is where I'm at as far as this process. This is what it looks like. Do you have any comments for me? So you are putting a little bit of a structure around that micromanagement, which helps with you managing your own time and gets them off of your back so you're a little bit more productive. That can be a huge thing. The other thing is when you do those updates, the other power of these updates is ask for next steps. So if you are in if you are in a long-term project, here's the feedback, and they say, okay, I want you to do this and this. Say, and what else? What would be the next thing? So what you're doing is you're trying to cut down that frequency. I want you to get to work on this. Okay, great. I need this and this and this. Okay, what else do I need to work on after I'm done with that? And then I will come back and update you on all of this. So you're cutting out the frequency of it. That's a huge aspect of it. The other thing that you want to look for is, wherever possible, look for examples of successful work. Hey, is there an example of this report that I can work off of? Is there an example of a PowerPoint that you liked for a particular presentation that worked for you? Dealing with a micromanaging boss is not fun. It's the #1 reason cited for people leaving positions, is a boss who micromanages. So it's something that's prevalent, that's out there. But offer updates. Look for examples where you can find them. Look for next steps or next bits of advice that the person would give to kind of cut that down just a little bit. John, so good to see you here. And the last thing that I wanted to kind of talk about is actually championing your successes. So when you have a boss who micromanages, a lot of that is control. But one of the ways that they can exercise control still is by building that trust. So you want to reference prior examples of where you handled a particular thing well. So it may be that you don't ask for an example. You say, hey, can I use the PowerPoint that I gave you last week as a template that you liked so much? So you're referencing a success. Or you're saying, you know what, I actually handled that for somebody else, or I did something along these lines before. So you're talking yourself up. You don't want to brag, of course. You don't want to go down that road with it, but you are calling out some of your prior successes. That helps build some trust with the boss. It's a long-term process on all of these, but when you can reference those successes in addition to the updates, to the next steps, to the examples that you're asking for, then the boss can start relaxing just a little bit and isn't hovering over you quite as much. And that can be something that really helps in the long run. Again, this isn't something that turns around over a week. It's something that turns around over a quarter or more if you're consistently working it. So that can really help. And let me know if you have any follow-up questions on that. Christy has our next question. It's, help me get out of my rut. Love it. I worked for the company for 11 years, 5 promotions. This last promotion, no training, and inherited a very short staff. Very typical, not uncommon. No day off for 3 months, yet GM works 9 to 3 and no weekends. Good for the GM. I feel like I'm being line level rather than a director. Exhausted. And so Christy, here's how you get out of your rut. All right, and I want to challenge, you mentioned rut, and rut is kind of a demoralization, okay? And I know you're kind of burning out, you're exhausted, and that may be what you're meaning. But I'm going to challenge you in regards to this, okay? The reason that the GM can work from 9 to 3 and not work weekends is the GM has delegated the responsibilities that aren't his to those people who control them, i.e. you. And so what this is this is a challenge for you to do the exact same thing. And so I'm going to talk about a few ways to kind of tackle that. And I know you might have rolled your eyes at me right off from the get-go on this. But there's a few things that I want you to really focus on, okay? Now, you mentioned the short staffing, okay? That being said, I want you, that may seem to be the odds-on favorite as far as what the biggest problem is. But I want you to engage your staff. I want you to ask for their suggestions, okay? Use the 5 questions that I mentioned on almost every single one of these Mentor Minutes episodes. Ask each one of them, pull them into the office and ask them, what do you see going right in the organization? What do you see going wrong? Where are there opportunities we need to take advantage of? Problems we need to fix? And how can I help you do your job better? Okay? I want to get them engaged. And the reason I want to get them engaged is for the ownership that comes out of it and the buy-in to your work that comes out of it, because that makes everything else easier down the road. I talked about this in today's blog post, so you can go check that out on my Facebook page. You'll see the link to my blog post today about getting buy-in and ownership. Bring them into the process of turning all of this around. First of all, you're going to get some insights and some things that are low-hanging fruit that will immediately make some improvements in the organization. But when you bring them in, they see that you're taking their feedback and you're taking action on it. They're going to be open to other things. And I use that step initially to build that buy-in so that then you can start delegating out some of those responsibilities, or at a bare minimum, creating backups, okay? So what you're looking to do is you're looking first and foremost, not to the most important thing necessarily, but for the most frequent and simplest to train item, Christy. You're looking for a very simple and quick win. It may be that somebody pulls a report for you in the morning instead of you pulling it. It may be something that takes 1 minute of your time. But get that to somebody else so that they can do it and you can manage that process. That's the beginning of building to bigger and better things that they can take off of your plate, and that so that you are left dealing with the important things. This isn't about you ceding your control and your authority. This is about you making time for the most important things that are on your schedule, and delegation is going to be a huge aspect of that. The other thing, and I'll actually take that back before delegation, is going to be prioritization. So what I am worried about is no days off for 3 months, okay? What I am worried about is a lack of prioritization. What can be let to slide, shall we say? And the answer is usually, you know what, nothing. It all needs to get taken care of. And that's almost never actually the case. I want you to look at the most important things that can't be let to slide in any way, shape, or form. And I want you to really zero in on that. Because if you didn't have a prioritization problem before, I almost guarantee the fact that you are so exhausted now, and you should be after working this hard, you probably are having a harder time keeping track on those priorities. Get clear on what the most important items are and what the most urgent items are, and get to work on that right off the bat. I talk about the first 15 minutes of your day. Don't open emails. Close the door to your office. Let the team know that for the first 15 minutes of your day, you're working on your things and you're getting a good start on the day. But you will open your door 15 minutes after you show up. Work on those priorities. If you get the ball rolling on some of these, you'll see that you're able to actually get some things across the finish line. You're not caught in a bunch of chaos that's out there. So I want you to get with your team, make sure you're getting in touch with your priorities, and then I want you to start delegating very small things. Because what's going to happen with that is you're not necessarily even going to delegate, but you are going to show people how to do reports, to set up whatever needs to be done in your department, so that when you have those higher priority items, you can shift that to somebody else. Their lower priority items can get put on hold till next week or whenever, and you can gain some sanity behind it. The last thing that I want to mention on this, and this is one you can kind of go back and review because I know I've hit you with a bunch of stuff on this one. I want you to set a clear deadline for when you are going to leave the office. Yes, I recommend absolutely you take Sundays off, for instance. But set a clear deadline that, you know what, at 6 o'clock every night, I'm out. Because what that deadline does is that focuses you. Anybody who's been to college and has had a paper that's due the next day knows how these deadlines work and how you get more focused and you are most productive. I'm not saying you get your best quality work done, by the way, but you are most productive during those times when you have that time pressure. So set a deadline for yourself that, you know what, it's 6 o'clock every day, it's 5 o'clock every day, 7 o'clock every day, I am out. And leave it for next time, okay? Build some structure into your day. Bring some more focus in. I mentioned having Sundays off, all right? And it's important that you take that rest, all right? Your brain can only do so much. And this really gets into a whole bunch of stuff. So I know I'm kind of going down the rabbit hole. So if anybody has any questions, drop them down and then I'll stop this kind of rabbit hole that I'm going down here. But there's a lot of good stuff that's housed in this particular issue. It's a psychological phenomenon that we only have so many good decisions and we get burnt out. There's study after study that shows that if you check decisions that are made later in the day, they are more haphazard than decisions that are made earlier in the day. Likewise, if you're not getting the rest as far as the weekends are concerned, you're not bringing your best. So taking a Sunday off or taking half of a Sunday off, start out small, is something that pays for itself down the road. While I have never experienced this myself in working out, people talk a lot about how, that half hour spent working out in the morning is more than made up for with extra energy throughout the day. Again, I don't know that I've seen that, but I've heard it from for a bunch of people that are out there. So look to set those limits. Try to carve out some time. I know I hit you with a bunch of stuff. You can catch this on a replay. Back it up, Christy, and I hope that helps. But let me know what other concerns popped up. What other, I mentioned something and you just said that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Drop down into the comments and let's sort this out. There's a lot to unpack here and a lot of different ways that you can kind of tackle this. As far as conversations with the boss, perhaps that can be something that comes up. I didn't even touch on dealing with the short staffing and what you might look to do in those areas. So hit me with some more questions and we'll kind of ferret this out just a little bit. Dave has the next question, and it's a colleague of mine is in the same position, is constantly saying and doing things that cause me to second guess my work. Any suggestions? I want you to get in touch with, it's a concept called first principles, and I won't use the exact concept here, but it kind of illustrates what I'm getting at, and that is get in touch with the why and the reason behind your decisions. And what I mean by that is get clear on what the goal is behind your actions. What is the goal for your department or your team? What are those goals? Is it more sales? Is it less costs? Is it more orders shipped? What are you working towards? Get crystal clear on that. Then you will start looking at how you conduct your business. Are you employee focused first? Are you company focused first? How are you making those decisions that align with those particular goals? I want to build up your defenses against this person because based on the question and just based on a lot of things, I get the impression this is almost more of a power play from your peer than it is you are really truly second guessing your decisions and how you work. So I want to reaffirm that you know what, I'm clear on what the goals are. I know how we're doing as far as reaching those goals, and these are the decisions that I'm making that align with those particular goals. Buttress that just a little bit. The other thing to mention with the colleague is to try to find ways to flip the script just a little bit with them. So what you want to do is, that's great, and I notice that problem, but start talking through solutions. All right, don't talk about problems with them. Share best practices, share solutions with the other individual. And so, yeah, you know what? I mentioned that, and this is what we did, and this is why we did it, and this is the results that we've received so far from this. So start talking through the positive aspect of things and start trying to share knowledge in a positive way that gives ideas. I hope I took that the right way as far as your question, because I know there's a couple of different ways that could be taken, but let me know if that rings true or whether I need to kind of follow up and bring that out just a little bit. Jonathan has the next one. It's any tips that you can share, as it pops up just as I'm reading it, any tips that you can share on what to keep in mind when returning to your place of work after 2 years on secondments elsewhere, probably in a different department position. Cheers. Love that sign off from most Commonwealth companies is cheers. I need to integrate that a little bit more. Jonathan, the first thing that you're going to need to realize is that the whole world changed, basically. If you're coming back into the same organization 2 years later, they better have changed a whole bunch because the world is changing. If you're not changing, you're not competing well and you're not going to be successful and you wouldn't want to go back to that organization. So realize that what you knew before has very limited value. And what you want to do, and I mentioned this before, is really start questioning other individuals, those subordinates, your peers, your bosses, the people that you knew that are now working in different departments. Ask them what's been going on, what's been working, what hasn't been working in the organization so you can come up to speed. Because again, the fact you were in that organization was great, but 2 years down the road, it's very limited. I'm talking like 20% of what you knew before is applicable now as opposed to what it was. So ask a ton of questions as to how things work. And be humble, Okay, be looking for other ideas, other ways to do things. Share your knowledge, absolutely, but be open to other ideas. So keep that in mind as you're going through it. They should see you as a big resource because you come to this. I say you have very limited, knowledge at this point 2 years later, but you're still coming with way more than somebody who's coming in off the street as far as an understanding of the organization and how it works. The fact that you might be working in a different department is another bonus because you have a new perspective that you can give into how things worked in that other department. But I want you to really reach out to everybody you knew before and ask them what's been going on, what have been the challenges, what were the problems, what happened. You need to be taking people out to lunch every single day for the first few weeks that you're there and just picking their brain on what's going on and coming up to speed. On the organization, this is my one little asterisk that I'll put on this. On the organization, you can get caught up on the gossip on what's been going on and who's been flirting with who in the office later on down the road. Really try to keep it focused on the job and the organization and say that from the outset. Hey, I just want to come up to speed with what's been going on. I know I've been out for 2 years and the whole place has probably changed. So what's been going on? Where have been the challenges? What happened last year that didn't work? That sort of thing. So I know I rattled off a whole bunch of questions, but that's really where you're going to come up with where your prior knowledge ties in and where you can be of service down the road, and then you'll hit the ground running as much as possible. Hope that helps, Jonathan. Food and beverage along with events is a beast. Oh yeah, going to meet with employees today. Yeah, meet with those employees, Christy, and yes, food and beverage, having spent some time in hospitality here in Las Vegas in the big hotels, that is a beast of a job. So that's going to be awfully, awfully tough. But look for those key individuals where you can delegate and pass on ownership and trust so that you can at least stop worrying about some of those people. And then follow up with me and let me know how else I can help. Vicente has the next question for us, and it's what if your employees are, if you are employee focused and the company is only focused on the bottom line? They're not mutually exclusive, Vicente. That's my quick and easy answer on it. How that usually comes up and why this becomes a question is you're focused on the employees and their well-being, and the company's looking to cut hours, for instance, or is looking to nickel and dime the employees as much as possible. And what I really want to get you focused on is how is serving the employee. You won't necessarily get everything that you want, all right, for the employees, but really focus on building them up, building up their skill set. If it's a situation where they're cutting headcount, I've been in situations like that where industries are slowly but surely, disappearing and you're losing headcount every single year. Look to give them the skill sets that make them more valuable to the operation. So they aren't as apt to cut those individuals because they are so valuable to the organization, but you're also giving them the skill set to be successful elsewhere should the company need to move on. What's important to realize, and most people that are tuning in to these Mentor Minute sessions are very employee focused, very people focused. Your heart's in the right place. You want to do right by people. The organization does need to be making money. Money is the lifeblood, is the blood circulating through. So the organization needs to be making money and needs to be doing well and needs to be showing growth in those areas for it to be healthy. That creates opportunities down the road. If the organization is growing from a sales perspective or has money to spend on things, then it's your job to try to identify those places where your people can move to. I'm coming up with the wrong word, so I'm flipping it in my head here, and take advantage of those opportunities that get created. But when you're employee focused and you're seeing that the company isn't necessarily, what I want you to do is actually double down. Invest more in that employee. Show how valuable they are to the organization. Show growth in performance. That's one of the best ways to do that. And what you're going to find is that you're going to find that you get a little bit more respect. Now, what often happens in those cases, all right, because I got a couple people out there that I'm sure they're rolling their eyes and going, yeah, if I make my employees more valuable, then they don't need as many of them. That's true. But which employees get left behind in that instance? It's almost always your poorest performers. So yeah, you've increased everybody's productivity by 50%. So now all of a sudden they want to cut 20% of your workforce. Which 20% are they going to get rid of? They're going to get rid of the poorest 20%. which actually is almost, and I don't like that sort of grading where they fire 10% of the employees every single year, but it can be healthy because it shows an accountability that people need to have. Hope I helped out with that one, Vicente. I know I kind of went around with that. Freddie, it's good to see you here. I'm just kind of checking here as everybody sees my hand work up there. Ooh, I seem to have lost these, there it is. Lost the thread there. Freddie's question is, what is the best approach to suggest a company to implement a better clock-in system because the current one where people write their time is being abused? Look for, I'm actually playing this out in my head. I hope that works for you, Vicente. I hope you're able to take something from that. If we're talking clock in, we're talking payroll, we're talking numbers, and we're talking money, okay? So first of all, I would look at systems that are out there or programs that are out there on the cheap, on the internet. Start something out. I almost guarantee there's a software as a service out there that your company can get in behind the firewall that people can use to clock in when they sit down at their desk every day, okay? But I want you to show them specific areas of abuse, where it's come up and what you've done about it, okay? It's important that they know that you're holding people accountable when you are finding abuse in the system, okay? But look for opportunities that are cheap and easy, because one of the things that's, now, it's a real issue, but I'm trying to figure out how to actually spin it for executive management, because what I want to say is I don't want you talking about this sort of situation where people are clocking in. It's a dumb thing to be coaching people on. You only have so many things that you can coach individuals on in a particular day. And this is one of those that I would classify as a conversation I don't want to have, displacing something about improving their sales or improving their performance. Dress code is another one that I say don't even bother with it, because it's a dumb thing to be creating a negative environment about because they wore the wrong type of flip-flops on a particular day. So look for cheap opportunities. Tell your executive management what you've been doing, what you think has been potentially lost. If you're writing people up and eventually terminating for them for this, then there is a cost associated with training an individual. So it could be that if you are losing one person every single year because of a poor clock-in system that they are abusing and you're holding them accountable for, then that 2 weeks of training could pay for an entire clock-in system. Look for other partners in this. So when we're talking about clocking in, what other departments have their people clocking in? Have a time management system that's out there. Talk about the different benefits. If you do a little bit of research on clock-in systems, they will provide you with some of the ROI points that are going to actually resonate for you. There's a whole bunch of return on investment that can occur with these systems. So take a look at those opportunities that they talk about that make sense for you. And I hope that helps out, Dorothy. I'm glad you liked it. And Freddie, I'm glad that works for you as well. All right, I am caught up on questions. So if you have any questions, go ahead, drop them down into the comment section. Happy to take those as we kind of roll on here. There were a couple of things that I wanted to talk about in regards to micromanagement. That was kind of the theme of today. We've had a ton of questions, so I haven't really gotten to too much of it. But one of the things is we've talked already about dealing with a boss who is micromanaging you, all right? And you want to offer updates. You want to ask for examples wherever possible. You want to ask for next steps. So when they say, I need you to do this, you say, okay, well, and they say, you want to start here. You say, okay, well, when I'm done with that, what else should I do? All right. And then you want to, talk up how you've done in these similar projects before so they don't feel like they need to micromanage you. Talk up your strengths a little bit. One of the most important ways to cut down on your own micromanagement is updates. So schedule updates, give a project, give a task to somebody and then say, hey, come by in 30 minutes and let me know how it's going. Come by tomorrow at 9 a.m. and let me know how it's going. Be specific. And that's a great way to actually make sure that the update takes place and doesn't just get shoved aside. But get specific and ask for those updates. That will reassure you and free you up and your mind up to focus on other things so that you don't have to stand over somebody's shoulder. The other thing that you want to do is you want to detach the what and the how. So too many times we have a way, this happens a lot with delegation, where you have a particular way of doing something and you want somebody to do it exactly the same way. What I want you to do is explain the task or the project that you want done. And then instead of telling them how to do it, ask them how they would do it. And if their way makes sense in some way, shape, or form, then let them go with it, because it's more likely to be success if it's their way of doing it as opposed to your way of doing it. They know themselves intuitively better than you do in many instances. So make sure that you're throwing it out to them as far as the how is concerned. Ask them. Then it gives you a chance to also give feedback on that. If it doesn't work, or if you have a few tweaks that you might recommend, that dialogue creates a little bit more trust and a little bit more understanding, so that again, you can step away from that micromanagement just a little bit. And I want to just kind of tackle one last thing in regards to it, and that is, so much of micromanagement, what people perceive as micromanagement, is you identifying things that are wrong, all right? It's one thing to have a boss that's hovering over you and is telling you how to do everything. That's definitely micromanagement. But a lot of what people consider micromanagement is a boss who is nitpicking everything. There is always, if you look deep enough, there is a problem with almost every single aspect, every single process, every single task that you give out. The question is, what is worth your time and effort to talk about? Because when we talk time management, there is never enough time to get everything done and everything off of your plate. So you are restricted. The best way to tackle it is restricted to getting the important things done. Not everything, the important things. And when you talk about something and you give negative feedback, or that sort of suggestion to somebody, you are displacing another opportunity that you have. You can't sit there and nitpick all day long on things. It's not going to be effective. You're going to demoralize your staff, and you're not going to continue to improve in your career. Look for your opportunities where they make sense to be coaching somebody. So we can talk about what the size of the margins are on the report that they printed out. Or you can talk about how to add further value to this report, or how can they do it on a regular basis for you. Both of those are more powerful uses of your time. And then at some point down the road, maybe if you've tackled all of the other important things in regards to this task or their performance, you can tackle that small thing. What you don't want to get into that habit of is always finding something wrong, because that is demoralizing to your staff and they don't want to do more. And that may be one of the reasons that you get micromanaged, is because they aren't interested in giving any extra effort or putting forth any thought process, because it doesn't matter. Because you're always dissatisfied and there's always a few things that you want fixed in whatever it is that you give them. So be mindful of that. Look for the important things, not the ticky-tack things. Look to set those things aside while you deal with the big things. And those are the tips for micromanagement for today. Anybody who's jumped on late here, you can always rewind this. It's good. You can check out my podcast over on iTunes or on SoundCloud. I'll try to include the links here when I get back to this particular recording. And if you have any questions, always see them at CameronMorsey.com. I'll get them on another episode. I'll keep you anonymous. You can direct message me on Facebook, or just drop down in the comments and I'll get them on tomorrow's episode. Hope this helped everybody, and I will talk to you all tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.